Hello and welcome to the Michael Mamas Show. I am your host, Michael Mamas, and we're coming to you from Mount Soma, home of the Sri Someshwara Temple in the mountains of western North Carolina. And today I just want to talk about what I've been up to lately. It's been really fascinating and really exciting, and basically it's kind of developed into, I'm writing a book. I don't know what the title of the book's going to be yet, but I'm thinking about maybe even calling it the second nervous system. I've mentioned in a couple of previous podcasts that I've been into, sumo deadlift and working with sumo deadlift. Kind of unfolded out of that in what I found just an incredibly fascinating way. I remember years ago, I heard that Maharishi was talking about second nervous system, and I guess there were some MDs in the audience or whatever, and they kind of, I wouldn't say they were arguing with him, but they just couldn't, no, there's only one nervous system, blah, blah, and after going back and forth a little bit, he said, okay, fine, there's one nervous system. But now, there's been a lot of insights and knowledge about the fascia, the connective tissue. And we all, I think, know what fascia is. It's that white kind of fibrous thing that's around muscles, or it holds the skin to the muscles and also penetrates through the muscles, and it's a whole structure, a whole lattice structure, a whole complex network that permeates the entire body, everything, every cell. Before, it used to just be thought of as just kind of something that holds things together, but it's way more than that. It's a second nervous system. And the way I came onto this was I started doing a deadlift, sumo deadlift. Sumo deadlift is when you have your legs spread out and you're holding the bar, between your legs on the ground and come up like that. But I noticed like muscles would get tight, or it felt like, the muscles aren't just strong enough, which is not what was going on at all. Or the lower back would hurt, whatever. And so all kinds of cues. And I was researching things on YouTube and online and listening to these different people that are world champions in sumo deadlift and teachers and everything. And it wasn't working for me. And then I can't even remember how, but I stumbled on the idea of fascia. And the idea is that if the fascia is right, it's all about the fascia. And if the fascia is holding the body right, then the muscles do what they need to do. But if you focus on the muscles, it's like having a foot on the brake and a foot on the accelerator at the same time. And this is true for movement in general. I'm talking about sumo here, but it's about movement in general, and in fact it's about life in general. Because if the nervous system is right, and I'm talking about the second nervous system here, then it speaks very directly to the Vedic understanding of, everything comes from silence. And Bruce Lee kind of alluded to it when it came to martial arts, but just not very clearly, and more philosophically than anything. But in my research in that, I came to realize that it's about forget energy, even though you can't look at it that way, but best to look at it like there's this nervous system that communicates the central nervous system with the muscle. And if that communication is right, that determines how effective the control of the muscle is. It's not about gaining muscle, in other words, it's about the nervous system and getting the nervous system right, particularly the second nervous system. And so there's a whole process, and this is life in general. I don't care if you're trying to become an accountant or whatever you're doing. The second nervous system, so often in life we tie ourselves in a knot. So the second nervous system has to do more with parasympathetic, and how parasympathetic, the background sort of, versus sympathetic, which is the action aspect. And even like in sports, for example, the parasympathetic is more quiet, it's more background. It's, and we've talked a little bit in the past about how silence is the foundation to proper movement. And so if the movement is integrated with the silence, which is the central nervous system in the parasympathetic state, that's where real strength comes from. That's strength. Strength isn't about more muscle. It's about the healthy connection between the parasympathetic and its control, if you will, over the sympathetic. Is that all making sense, Scotty?
Yes, it is.
And so in working with it, and the way the thing unfolds, I'm writing a whole book on this, and I want to do it in a way where it's not just about sumo deadlifting. That would really miss the point. But about, no matter what you're doing, it's down or vade, it's the art of action, and how it's grounded in silence, grounded in the transcendent, really, the absolute, which is accessed through the central nervous system, and then it wells up through the different levels of existence and into the body through the fascia. See, if the fascia is not right, the whole physiology is agitated, not just the physical, but even the mental, the psychological. It's all about that relationship between sympathetic and parasympathetic. And when you talk about stress, and I think oftentimes, and there's a truth to this, see, there's one aspect of the awareness that when it's free of enough stress, then you become fully awake. It's called enlightenment. You become fully awake to the transcendental foundation of consciousness, which is the transcendental foundation of everything, and certainly awareness. But even in that state of enlightenment, if the communication between that deeper level of being, the aspect of the central nervous system that maintains pure awareness, is a physiological thing, not an attitude or philosophy. Even after enlightenment, okay, that's all there and alive and awake, but you still have the whole fascial system, the second nervous system, that needs refinement. And so much of the emotional traumas, the psychological traumas in general, that's stored in the fascia. And as the fascia then purifies out, that's really the foundational to what points in the direction we could say longevity or immortality, if you really want to extrapolate out. And the cool thing about sumo deadlifting is that it's a direct access to that. So you look at it like it's not really about physical development so much as it's a culturing of the central nervous system and the physiology and the fascia. And in that process, I remember seeing years ago in some martial arts book or something, they talked about spirals, but it was all kind of philosophy and that. But I remember coming upon the idea that the energy, if you will, it's really piezoelectric. We can look at it and forget energy if you want. It's just piezoelectric effect within the physiology, within the fascial planes. But they're not straight lines, they're spirals. And that was a huge revelation for me. And it changed everything, because then what happens is you start to discover the way the fascial system works. It works in spirals. You can trace it like it comes up from the earth, you ground in the earth, that's what they mean by grounding, but in a fascial sense. You get established in the earth, and then
We have to go out the other way, and we need to find my wallet.
Scotty, what's that?
Sorry.
And then the tensor lines, they well up through the different, you can say muscles or the whole body really, and it spirals up through in certain ways. And when all that is communicating, it's all about rotational, it's not about straight lines. And then there are ways to hold the body where the physiology starts to learn how to thrive, how to function the way it was designed to function, which is with respect to these spirals, not straight lines. And it was amazing, because even when you set up to do an exercise, if you connect to the spirals first, you feel it. It's an experience. It's not about trying to get your physiology to line up with a model, though those models can kind of point into a direction that helps you access just the natural coherence in the physiology, which is spirals. And once you do that, you can feel it. It kind of locks in. And then when you do, like, for example, a lift, it's like the spine just floats within the envelope of the fascial system. It's incredible. It's incredible how that actually works. Because weights that before, if you just try to do it with the muscle, if you try to muscle it up, you got one foot on the accelerator, the other on the brake, and you're fighting yourself. And the central nervous system is saying, no, you can't do it that way. And so the whole thing locks up. Sore muscles aren't really sore muscles, they're tensions in the fascia. This is changing everything. When it comes to physical health, this is changing everything. And we're just on the beginning of it now. If you read, like, they talk about internal martial arts, and this is what internal martial arts is really about. But out of curiosity, I went on YouTube and looked up internal martial arts. And it was all overlay. Okay, you got this microcosmic orbit, and breathe and feel the energy moving through this way, or different things like that. And I'm not saying those are bad. People can get really good at those overlays and make progress, but it's not really fundamental to the true nature of things. I think that's why Bruce Lee, at some point, all these different models he learned and stuff, and at some point he basically rejected them. It wasn't really that he rejected them, but he moved beyond them. He passed through them, and he got to the point where the physiology was just functioning in a natural way. How did he say it? Be true to yourself. Something like that, but that's the idea. That's the direction human physiology is going, our understanding of human physiology, not just with respect to exercise, and also not just with respect to physical movement, but also with respect to the whole function, the motor function of the awareness, the psyche, everything. And so as I've been doing this, one thing I discovered is how much purification happens when you start purifying the fascial envelope. It's intense. It really is intense. And it's incredibly exciting. And I really hope I'm conveying the idea that this isn't just about exercise. It's not just about sumo deadlifting, certainly, it's about life. And it's about human physiology, and it's a major breakthrough that we're just getting onto. I actually searched different texts. There's some ancient Chinese texts, but they're more poetic and they don't really say it, you know? So what I'm going to do in my book, my intention, is to say it in a very accessible, natural way. We live in a great time. Major transformations, major changes. I've talked about peptides, how radical that is, and you know, the whole idea of UFOs and how things are opening to that, and whole new systems in so many different arenas of life are all unfolding. And yeah, there's a lot of stress in the world today, horrible things, but it's a purification process. As these things open, stresses that have been held start to release, and at least they're waving goodbye. You know, it may not feel that way, but that's what's happening. So if I can convey all that in a book, if I can really bring this understanding out in a book, and just using sumo deadlifting as one example, you see, but doing it in a way where just think that, get lost in thinking the book is about sumo deadlifting. No. It's about the whole ball of wax, you know. Anything else, Scotty? I think that I just want to give people a feel for what I've been up to, and admittedly, I'm deeply immersed in it now, and so you're more, I think, witnessing my process than a final product. But actually, I think that's even better, because where it ultimately leads isn't about step 1, step 2, step 3. It's about when you've gone through all that. And it's no longer about technique. It's about living it spontaneously and naturally, you see. So I think it's worth trying to convey that in this podcast, but also in the book. Anything else, Scotty?
No, I think you did it.
I think that's it for now. And we just switched to a different format here, so if I can figure out how to stop broadcasting, Scotty, what do I do?
Just click leave or stop.
How do I get this thing to stop recording?
You can close the browser. That'll stop it.
Yeah.
For sure. Ask ChatGPT.
You think there'd be just a little button that just says stop? Oh, here it is, stop. I found it.